So hello and welcome to this video on the Frap Tools Fumana, and we're going to look at a couple more vocoding examples. So my input to the Fumana is this sound. 3 oscillators mixed together and then put into the one input, which copies across to both the odd and even bands. My modulation signal, which is what this analysis row and these white LEDs are showing us, and these are also modulating everything up top, is a drum break. Now I'm using the analysis to actually give me some triggers for another kick and snare, which is this sound. Now I'm attenuating this output, which is the snare, because they're so accurate in their analysis that with the signal up full, every little hit in that frequency is triggering my snare. But because this is a variable amplitude output, the analysis and envelope following across these various frequency bands, I can attenuate it and get a cleaner snare pattern. And it's catching those little kind of ratchets and drags on the snare. So adding that to the breakbeat, which is the modulation signal itself, means we can kind of fatten up that beat. But let's listen to the vocoding of this sound at the input against this sound at the modulation input. I'm taking the odd and even outputs and panning them hard left and right so you can hear the difference in the bands. So I suggest putting on headphones or some good speakers. And I'll just kill my modulation. Nice little chirpy. I love the sound, it's really kind of wet and vocal. But modulating the tilt with a looping envelope. This isn't synced to anything. Modulating amplitude and frequency. Lots of great vocoded sounds. So let's add a little reverb to that. Here's our drums triggered by the analysis of the modulator. And a little bit of that breakbeat at the modulation in for good measure. So that's vocoding a synth polychord sound against the drum break, using information from that drum break with this modulation and analysis section to trigger other drum sounds, and modulating Fumana for all its lovely vocoding filtering goodness. Let's move on to another example. So there's quite a bit going on in this second patch, but let's just take a quick listen before diving into it. So, the patch itself is a well-known vocal a cappella, which I won't play because I don't want YouTube copyright infringement for it. Going into the mod in on the Fumana. Here's my input to Fumana, which is Mutable Instruments Tides. So that's the input. I'm coming out of the odd and even outputs on Fumana and going into a VCA and alongside that sequencing the input, here that is again, have two related gate rhythms, and they are triggering envelopes and opening up the VCAs, controlling the odd level and the even level externally. So here that is. So we can hear the vocal at that input, the mod input, is controlling all these bands. Let's blend in a bit of the dry input. And with all these great little articulations and all this detail from this multi-band envelope following, it's nice just to tilt to the low end and make sure some of that fundamental low end from the oscillator at the input actually comes through into the signal. Now, alongside the sequence playing the input and triggering my VCAs, have related clocks triggering a drum pattern. But I'm using the analysis from Fumana to CV the opening of my hi-hats. And I'm also CVing the filtering on the noise on the snare. So if you listen carefully, with the hats again. So I'm influencing my drums from the vocal a cappella at the modulation input on Fumana. That's influencing the harmonics and the level of these filter banks, individual little filter frequencies on this input. That's coming out of the odd and even out into VCAs. I'm going to tilt to bring a bit more low end in all the time. I could just turn those up. But I'm also going to influence this input with some of these outputs. So let's modulate some of the tonal parameters on tides. And some of them are quite quick audio rate style modulations. So the analysis is influencing tides, which is the input that's already been modulated in Fumana by the analysis of this vocal. So together, this weird, crispy, oddly wet, vocoded, degraded thing. I mean, it's interesting. I really like the textures. I've got a little bit of delay on that. And my drums. So it's just another way to use the vocoder for quite a lot of control in a patch. Hit like, subscribe, check out my other Fumana videos on the channel. Go support me on Patreon if you'd like extra content over there. There are bonuses for people that choose to support. Huge thanks for those that do. Thanks to you for watching. Cheers.